Hey crew, welcome back to the workshop. Artisan Pirate here, and in today's fun spring and summer themed scroll saw project video, we're going to be making a beautiful bouquet of flowers using the segmentation method completely over at the scroll saw. Really cool. I've already got the pattern photocopied to its full size and attached to our material with clear packing tape. And the pattern we're going to be using today comes from an older issue of Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine by Fox Chapel Publishing, spring 2025, issue 98, so not that old as a matter of fact. Actually, we have already made the Blue Bayou Heron that's on the cover of this magazine, but the pattern and article we're going to be focusing on today is on page 62. And here you see a beautiful visual representation of what the finished design can look like. It says Tulip Bouquet Segmentation, shape and paint some cherry flowers that don't need water. So really neat, by Miss Danielle Wendell, and I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. But what follows is an article on how to cut, sand, shape, and finish the project. And it follows along to page 65, where the full-size pattern is located, as well as a brief biography of the author of the design itself. Really cool. As I said, the pattern has already been photocopied and attached to our material with clear packing tape. And here you see the full design. And we're going to be using more 1/2-inch poplar that I picked up at the hardwood store for this design. And I've attached the pattern in a little bit different manner. You all know that I 99% of the time use just basic clear packing tape to attach patterns. In this method, because we're going to have to cut the project out kind of like a puzzle, I've used the spray adhesive blue painter's tape as well as clear packing tape for added reassurance. So there you see the blue painter's tape, and then I use spray adhesive on the pattern, and then I put clear packing tape, that's the glossy sheen you see there, on top of everything for added reassurance to make sure the pattern stays in place. And anytime I do a segmented scroll saw project, I always take a basic crayon, a Sharpie, a pencil, whatever I have nearby close to hand, and I will scribble and scroll on the back side of it, as you see I've done here. That way, once all of the scroll saw work is complete and all the patterns have been peeled away, I know what side I need to sand, shape, and contour to give it that beautiful three-dimensional segmentation look. I've got a piece of material here that my buddy Jerry Meismer gave me, and I think it's going to look very appropriate for the backer board here once we get the project made. I don't know what kind of material it is. I can't really tell by the smell, but it does have a hairline crack in it, so I know I won't be able to do any kind of scroll saw work with it, but it will be suitable for a nice spring and summer themed backer board. And anytime we do a segmented project or even cut out a puzzle, I always keep a small parts bin off to the side of the scroll saw to where I can keep track of all the small pieces during the scrolling process. And here is a look at a finished segmented design we made either last year or the year before. And it is a tropical lighthouse and sailboat beach scene, and it's made using the same method that I'll be using in today's video. And this is an older Steve Good design. But since everything is pretty much prepped and prepared, let's move the camera over to the workbench where we can take the Seiko scroller's drill and drill out the few pilot holes that are required for this project, so we can head over to the Rikon scroll saw and start making some sawdust. And over here on the workbench, we're going to take the Seiko scroller's drill and drill the one pilot hole for internal cutting, and then we'll move over to the Rikon scroll saw and begin scrolling. I'm doing that initial internal cut, and now it's just a matter of following the long outside perimeter line to release the flowers from the waste wood. For all of the scrolling on this project, I'll be using a number 5 Ultra reverse tooth blade, and it will cut through the material exceptionally well with minimal chip out. This project, as I said, is from an old issue of Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine by Fox Chapel Publishing, and I'll hold it up once again as we get ready to close the video. But now here at the close-up view, you can see that I'm releasing the individual pieces. And anytime I do a segmentation piece like this, I always try to make sure that the lines flow as smoothly as possible, and I hope that makes sense. But as always, I am taking my time and letting the blade do the work. If you guys like what you're seeing, I would highly encourage you to subscribe to my channel and also follow me across all my social media feeds under the Artisan Pirate name. I'd really appreciate the support. We are already almost done with the scroll saw work, and as you can see, the pieces get very small, so just be very careful when cutting them out. But now that all of the scroll saw work is done, we'll step over to the workbench, and I'm using another copy of the pattern for reference on how to assemble it, and I am peeling away the pattern, and this is why we used blue painter's tape, because it basically peels away like a post-it note and a sticker, and I will not bore you all with peeling away all of the patterns. I had to do this for each individual piece, and then we kind of got our first visual of what the finished design is going to look like. And you could totally just paint or stain everything now and glue it back together, but we of course will sand, shape, and contour everything with our Marathon rotary tool and a sanding drum. And you can sand, shape, and contour a segmented scroll saw project as much or as little as you want. And because we marked on the back side of our piece of 1/2-inch poplar that we cut out at the scroll saw, I know without a doubt what side of the piece I need to sand, shape, and contour. But it does take a little bit of time to do this, because you have to go around each individual piece. But after everything was sanded initially, I'm going to start gluing the piece up in sections using medium grade CA glue and activator. And I'm gluing the stem of the flower bouquet together here. And of course the CA glue basically dries and bonds instantly. But after everything is glued together, I will leave it setting for around 5 minutes to make sure that that glue has completely dried and cured. Partially gluing everything together now will help during the painting process that'll be happening really soon after we do a final sanding with a high grit sanding sponge from Klingspor Woodworking Shop, getting into all of those nooks and crannies and smoothing out any imperfections left by the rotary tool. But now I'll put a piece of material here for our backer board, and we will roughly measure it out by eye. Of course, the one featured in the magazine is finished totally different, but I'll step over to the Rikon table saw and quickly cut it down to size. Again, my buddy Jerry Meismer gave me this piece of material, so I'm unsure of what it actually is, but it does have some beautiful grain textures. And now I have laid out a piece of scrap paper, and I've got out my acrylic craft paint pens, and we are painting the flowers up in some nice spring-like colors. Of course, you could totally spray paint these. You could stain them with different stains, or if you cut the project out of exotic or hardwood, you could let those natural colors shine forth. But if you went that route, you would lean more into the realm of Intarsia. But these acrylic paint pens have come in handy so much in the workshop this year, and I wish I had bought them years ago. And I love how they basically dry in less than a minute after painting. But now it'll be time to begin the final glue up with more medium grade CA glue and activator. And again, I am just eyeballing everything here and just working quickly because the CA glue bonds and starts drying quickly. But after it dried for around 5 minutes, it was time to apply a finish. and I gave it several coats of Rust-Oleum clear gloss, and it really made the grain in that backer board we used stand out and pop. And I had it by the shop door with the fan blowing on it to accelerate drying time, and after it was dry to the touch, I brought the piece back to the workbench and got a wax twine cord, and I threaded it underneath the stem of the flowers to give it the simulated look of a bouquet of flowers tied together. It's the little touches like this that really make a project stand out and give it character. And here we have the completed Tulip Springtime segmentation piece, cut out completely from start to finish over on the Rikon scroll saw, and it finished up beautifully and spectacularly with some nice creative and springtime details in it. Really, really cool. I hope this is one of those projects that really helps you think outside of the box when it comes to, hey, what is a scroll saw capable of? Again, they are a very versatile tool to have out in your garage or workshop. It took me only around 15 minutes to do all of the scroll saw work. It's not very intricate. You could, of course, go above and beyond and cut out more of the details, and I'll talk about that momentarily, but I kept looking at the magazine and cut it out how it was featured in the older issue of the magazine that I'll show you as we get ready to close the video. I want to once again thank Miss Danielle Wendell, and again I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, for the beautiful and creative design featured in the older issue of Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine by Fox Chapel Publishing. But really, really cool. Hopefully along from the beginning of the video until now as we are closing it, you picked up a tip, trick, or tidbit about doing segmentation over at the scroll saw. We started with a basic piece of 1/2-inch poplar and that piece of wood that had a hairline crack that my buddy Jerry Meismer gave me, and with a little bit of time, practice, patience, and effort, we made this beautiful and creative design. And I like how it features that little tied twine there at the base to kind of simulate a bouquet of flowers tied together in a rustic fashion. Now keep in mind, I did the segmented method in today's video as it was intended in the magazine. As a matter of fact, here is the visual representation we were going by, and then here is the one I made and finished in today's video, so you can compare and contrast there. And I used the acrylic paint pens that we've really been using a lot this year to add a splash of springtime color. Now you can go above and beyond with this method. You could of course use spray paints, acrylic craft paints, the paint pens like I have here, or you could use exotic or hardwoods and let those natural grains and textures shine through to where you might not even need to add a splash of paint, stain, or anything like that. But I really think the Rust-Oleum clear gloss we added at the end really tied everything together. And again, I don't know what the backer board is, but I really love the grain texture in it and that nice glossy appearance that it has in the lights of the workshop. And I think it brought everything together once the clear coat was applied. The time you're going to have in this project is going to be sanding, shaping, and contouring everything, and also painting everything if you go the route of painting, because again, it's not a very complex pattern. I had an extra pattern photocopied here so I could use it as a guide to help during the assembly process, and you can see where some of the glue stuck there when we were gluing it together. The pattern indicates a lot of veining lines, visual lines of details that you could use as a sanding guide or shaping guide when you got to that area, and you could totally do everything. But as it's featured in the magazine, here is the article on page 62, and then when you go over here, I cut it out basically how she cut it out in the magazine as well. And then we used the Marathon rotary tool that I've still got back here on the workbench by Bearwood Supply that my good friend Sterling Davis gave me a few years ago. Use that all the time out here in the workshop, and I used several different sanding attachments and shaping attachments to get the desired effect I wanted. And I really love how this finished up. I think it would look right at home out in the country in a rustic cabin or a windowsill or something like that. You could totally put a different backer board on it. The one featured in the magazine has a round white one, and I think that really adds a nice rustic elegance to it. Makes it look very antique-y with the whitewash finish that they did in the magazine, but still with the vibrant colors here, I think it's still finished up beautifully. And I hope you all like that tip of me taking the back side of the piece and scribbling or scrawling on it with a crayon or a magic marker. That way, once all of the patterns were peeled away, and the blue painter's tape really helps with that, it just peels away kind of like a post-it note or a sticker, and it gives you a clear indication on which side to sand, shape, and contour when you get to that stage. I've always done that when it comes to segmented pieces. Even back, I showed you this one at the beginning of the video, the tropical lighthouse scene that was an older Steve Good design. This is also a video over here on the channel. But I'm really happy with how this finished up, and I'm probably going to give this to my mom as a gift, or my aunt. They both love having plants in their kitchens and having flowers and everything, and the tulips really spoke to me because my grandfather planted her a bunch of tulips in the front yard garden bed when I was real little, and every year they would come up, and every year we always had one single purple tulip. I don't know why, but that was always cool, and it was just fond memories to look back on while making this project. And it's just another cool and creative project to show what a scroll saw is capable of out in a garage or workshop. But if you make a project like this, please let me know down in the comments below. And if you've made this exact design but finished it in a different way, please send me a photo on social media or email it to me. I'd love to see the different takes on the same individual pattern. I always love to see people's different interpretation of the same exact scroll saw pattern. But again, the design that we made and brought to life in today's video come from an older issue of Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts magazine by Fox Chapel Publishing, spring 2025, issue 98 to be precise, with the blue bayou heron on the cover. This was also a previous video over here on this channel. And again, the article begins on page 62, and what follows is an amazing article on how to make and bring this project to life. And when you flip over to page 65, there is the full-size pattern that we photocopied and used to make these beautiful tulip designs over on the scroll saw. But I hope you all enjoyed the video, and hopefully you all learned something new from the intro until now as we are closing the video. One more look at it and we will close the spring and summer themed scroll saw project video. If you're new to the channel, hopefully you'll click that subscribe button and follow me across all my social media feeds under the Artisan Pirate name. As always, links to contact me as well as all my social media feeds will always be linked down in the description box below these videos. That's about all for this one, crew, and remember, if I can make it or do it, so can you all. I'm the Artisan Pirate. Take care, and I'll see you all real soon.